As we continue the creature's story, he is living in this hovel next to this family, and he is discovering, as he goes further, seeing the family and the way they interact, he is discovering his own connection to humanity and his own human emotions. And one of the human things that he comes in contact with is sorrow, is misery. Why do we, as humans, have misery or sorrow? It says in the text here, "They were not entirely happy. The young man and his companion often went apart and appeared to weep. I saw no cause for their unhappiness, but I was deeply affected by it. If such lovely creatures were miserable, it was less strange that I, an imperfect and solitary being, should be wretched. Yet why were these gentle beings unhappy? They possessed a delightful house, for such it was in my eyes, and every luxury. They had a fire to warm them when chill, and delicious viands when hungry. They were dressed in excellent clothes, and still more. They enjoyed one another's company and speech, interchanging each day love of affection and kindness. What did their tears imply? Did they really express pain?" We see him here grappling with that most mysterious of evils, which is the evil of sorrow, of human agony. Why do people feel agony? We have so much that is available to us, food and drink and clothing and shelter. Why would we be miserable? What causes our sorrow? These sorts of questions are what make the human different from the animal world, is that we ask those questions. We wonder about our state and who we are. And his wonderment, he finds, has answer in poverty immediately. It's poverty that causes the pain of this family. But that poverty isn't the only reason that they're sorrowful. They're sorrowful because of their state in life and how they've fallen. And yet in the midst of their poverty, he finds that they act out of kindness towards one another. They often, I believe, suffered the pangs of hunger very poignantly, especially the two young cottagers. For several times, they placed food before the old man when they reserved none for themselves. This trait of kindness moved me sensibly. I had been accustomed during the night to steal a part of their store for my own consumption, but when I found that in doing this I inflicted pain on the cottagers, I abstained. So from seeing their acts of kindness, he himself, the creature himself, comes to be capable of kindness too. He sees his own actions as causing kindness or sorrow, and he chooses to show kindness to these cottagers. It's something of a commentary on the nature of human society. In human society, there are the haves and the have-nots. And in the midst of having nothing, kindness begins to build up society, being able to sacrifice for someone else. I'm thinking of people even in the extreme circumstances, like Maximilian Kolbe, who was able to give to others so that they could survive in the concentration camps. Here the creature is learning a similar type of consideration, kindness to his fellow man. Well, then as the narrative progresses, we have the discovery of language that the creature makes. It's partly as a vehicle so that we can understand him. It's like in a movie where people move from speaking Russian to suddenly speaking English so we can understand them for the rest of the movie, or subtitles in a movie. In this vein, we have the creature learning language, learning how to write and how to read so that we can understand him later on. But it also shows, again, this progression of the developing human, because the creature here represents, to some degree, the development of a human person, from very young, baby, seeing light and darkness, to more and more understanding of the world. Now here he learns the artifice of reading and writing. By degrees I made a discovery of still greater moment. I found that these people possessed a method of communicating their experience and feelings to one another by articulate sounds. I perceived that the words they spoke sometimes produced pleasure or pain, smiles or sadness in the minds and countenances of the hearers. This was indeed a godlike science, and I ardently desired to become acquainted with it. That whole ability to speak, to communicate with one another, speech beyond just clicks or sounds that the other animals make. Our speech, our human speech, both in writing and in oral speech, or even in video, is different from the animals because we convey abstract ideas. We can convey our thoughts and our emotions and our experience. And by our words, we have a certain power where we're able to move other people towards action, to move them towards action or to move them towards emotions or to move them to experience something of what we've gone through. And there's this deep desire, I think, in every human being to try and express their experience to another person so that other people can understand what they're going through. Similarly, when we read great works like this, or when we hear great speeches, or we see great images like in movies, we have an access to another person's experience, another person's understanding. And that's one of the advantages of great literature. It gives us an insight into other people's lives. And so consequently, we are experiencing what they've experienced vicariously in a way. It broadens our perspective. It gives us a realm that we might never experience. And thus we understand more what it means to be a human person. That's what the creature is experiencing here. Now, the names of the characters that he sees in the cottage are important to note as well. He finds that the girl is called Agatha, and that the son, the boy, is called Felix, or Felix. I'd encourage you to look up those names. Find out what they mean. The names have importance in the story. Why is she called Agatha? What does that mean? And why is he Felix? What does that imply? What does that mean? Further on, the creature has a critique of himself as well. He says that I had admired the perfect forms of my cottagers, their grace, beauty, and delicate complexions, but how was I terrified when I viewed myself in a transparent pool. At first I started back, unable to believe that it was indeed I who was reflected in the mirror. And when I became fully convinced that I was in reality the monster that I am, I was filled with the bitterest sensations. He sees himself in a mirror and basically is repulsed by it. Now remember back earlier on that Victor says he created him beautiful, and that he has had experience with other people pelting him with rocks or shrieking when they see him. So whatever this beauty is that Victor was describing, it may have with it a conveyance of supernatural horror. But on the other hand, if we're looking at human development, the sense that the creature has is one of isolation. He's isolated in a crowd. He's somebody who's different from every other human person. And consequently, he embodies a sense, I think, that some people go through where they feel like they are different from everyone else. No one understands them. If I can say it, it's something of a teenage problem, too. How many teenagers go through that experience of no one understands me, no one understands what I'm going through, I'm different, my body's hideous, I'm hideous. That sense that the creature has here of his own hideousness, his own loathsomeness, that no one will ever see him as beautiful. I think Mary Shelley is really embodying a stage in human development where we come to grips or try to come to grips with the fact that we feel isolated from our fellow humans.